I'm going to start explaining a little bit the general conversation topic that, sometimes I don't love this way of doing things, but I just find it's easier for people, for all that we have these like kind of series of conversations, just so you have a broader topic so that people know where we're is thinking about, and it's not intended to like be a straitjacket so you can't talk about anything else, but but we've been I guess last week we started this conversation with Grant about Jesus, just the idea that Jesus isn't about here to just take us to heaven when we die, that kind of thing, but Jesus is about renewing all things, renewing all creation and restoring it to the way God wanted it to be, and so, yeah, we looked at Genesis 1 and this kind of stuff, but we decided to be, using this topic. It's a convenient way to talk about like different topics, honestly, because, what counts as part of God's creation? It's just, everything under the sun, right? Everything under the sun that God cares about. And it's an opportunity to talk about some conversations that are a little bit, I don't know, maybe things that Christians sometimes avoid, right? The things that we don't always talk about. I'm reminded of that verse, Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God, or Psalm 24, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And how can we learn to appreciate these topics? So anyways, this is one of the reasons that I thought it would be interesting to talk to you or bring in Dr. Edgardo Rosario. You go by Edgardo or do you go by Ed?
Ed. The only people that call me by my full name were my parents, and when they were mad at me, so Ed is fine.
Edgardo Rosario, get in the room. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I know that I guess this is going to be your topic, talking about science and faith in the Hispanic community, but I didn't actually shorten your bio, so this is your whole bio. But actually, maybe, do you want to read it?
Sure. Can you move the video?
Yeah, let me move this so you can read it. Yep.
Sure. Reverend Dr. Edgardo Rosario is an ordained elder in the Church of the Nazarene and has pastored congregations in Philadelphia, Puerto Rico, and Washington, D.C. He also serves the church as an adjunct professor at Nazarene Bible College and European Nazarene College. Dr. Rosado earned a bachelor's degree from Nazarene Bible College, Master of Arts in Pastoral Leadership from Olivet Nazarene University, and a PhD in theology at the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico. He is currently working on an Ed.D. in ethical leadership at Olivet Nazarene University. His academic research concentrates on how faith can help us change our social environment and racial and social disparity issues. Dr. Rosado currently works as an associate project director for Esperanza's national programs and leads the Ciencia, Fe y Esperanza, that is Science, Faith, and Hope project. This project aims to provide a safe space for pastors, congregations, and youth to openly discuss the confluence of faith and science as a way to encourage young people to see science as a vocation and as a service to God and their community. He also leads the Renovación Pastoral project to build capacity for pastors within their first 10 years of pastoral service to the Hispanic community. Dr. Rosado lives in Philadelphia with Maitia, his wife of 28 years. Together, they enjoy long drives, watching movies, and spending their vacation time in Puerto Rico, their birthplace.
Boricua.
Boricua.
I would love to hear all about this stuff, but the general topic, science and faith, it's definitely, the longer you are a Christian, the more you recognize it is a topic that Christians aren't all united on, for sure. I mean, today the point isn't to kind of get the final say on it at all, but is to hear your perspective because you are working in this Ciencia, Fe y Esperanza project here in our neighborhood. And my understanding, you're especially after the pandemic, going to try to really engage, especially Hunting Park, so I'm just, I just thought I'd be really interested to hear your perspectives and what you've learned in your time so far at Esperanza. So yeah, take it away. And
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. That was kind of humbling to hear all those things. My wife gets in my case because I'm not too thrilled or fond of my academic achievements. So when they're read like that, I feel weird about it. So yeah, I'm just Ed. I'm a pastor. I've been a pastor for the last, oh my goodness, 24 years. And as part of my interactions with people, I have developed a thirst or a greater thirst for knowledge. I did not start it as a pastor. My intention was to become a medical doctor. So my first approach to the academic world was as a pre-med student, and the Lord had different plans for me and kind of snatched me away from that track and placed me in a different track. And that's kind of how I ended up in Philadelphia, probably 1990, I think, and been around here for quite some time and traveling around and moving where the Lord has led. As Jeremy was saying, I am the associate project director for the Science, Faith, and Hope project, and this is a project that is funded by the John Templeton Foundation, and it is a project that is seeking to address or is working to address a substantive gap between faith and science, particularly in the Hispanic community. But I'm pretty sure that some of these things and some of the findings that we have encountered and the attitudes we have encountered can be generalized to include other faith groups and other ethnic groups as well. We kind of started. We needed to establish a baseline because the information that we had kind of grew out of anecdotal and personal interactions one-on-one with pastors in the area. And as we started, the pandemic came crashing in. I think Jeremy and myself were talking about, when I was being onboarded at Esperanza, that very same day was when the close orders came in. So I was ushered in into the building. I was given a computer, and I was kind of escorted out because everything was shutting down. So our intention was to engage with a wider segment of the communities of faith in Philadelphia from the get-go, from the onset of the project. But that was kind of not possible for lack of a better way to put it. So we engaged a wide number of clergy to establish a baseline about the confluence or the attitudes of around faith and science, with the understanding that the pastor's attitudes will reflect the attitudes of their congregation to a lesser or a greater extent. And to our surprise, we found that 50% of religious people, pastors, clergy, 50% explain that religion is central to all science, but not the other way around. God created everything, so of course He has the last word to say. And like 20% say that religion and science are somehow correlated. And from there's a wide array of people that believe that there's no way that they can coexist or cohabit in the same phrase or in the same spaces or scope. So it is interesting that it's kind of a 50-50 split. The population, the baseline that we established, 50% say science and theology or religion coexist, or faith coexist, and 50% of those have a wide range of emotional responses to that particular subject. And for us, that was kind of interesting, especially in light of the church's response to COVID-19 and our responsibilities as communities of faith, not only to our constituencies or members of our communities of faith, but also our responsibilities, our witness to the community at large. One of the central tenets of Esperanza is that we live and we engage the world around us in the same attitude as Jesus engaged the world around himself. So our attitude is to serve even the least of these through all our engagements and through all our programs. So our approach has been to create or to find resources that could help or inform the dialogue and the conversation between churches, young people, parents, and the community at large, in the hopes that we move the needle and the attitudes are changed and people start seeing faith and science as working together to bring us to a deeper place or a deeper revelation of whom God is and the way that he works in the world. One of the analogies that keeps popping in and out of our circles as we engage with both theologians and faith-based scientists is that a more sensible approach to religion and science, or to faith and science, is the analogy of a building with at least two windows looking out towards the world. One of the windows may be looking eastwardly, and the other one may be pointing to the north. So if you look at either of those windows, you are looking at the exact same world. You know, there's only one world. The building is located in a geographical space. We can mark coordinates, and we know we can pinpoint exactly where that building is. But the view out of those two windows is unique, is different. You'll be looking at the same structures or the same natural environment or setting, but you will be looking at it from different perspective. Ergo, you will be seeing different things, and that is the way in which science and faith are the same. You know, we are looking at the same phenomenon, God's creation, the things that God created, but we are both looking at them from different vantage points. So we're looking and explaining phenomenon and creation from a different perspective. Jeremy mentioned the psalmist, looking up into the heavens and not helping himself, and could not contain himself, and declared that every single thing that he observed in the starry sky is nothing but the imprint of God, the handprint of God, the mighty works and movements and grace and love and provision that God has seen so finely to bestow upon us. So that's the psalmist, the religious perspective. And I'm afraid that we miss the point that when astronomers are looking upwards with their telescopes, they're observing the same wonders, and they're probably in the same amount or maybe more awe of these celestial beings that they are looking in probably greater detail that when you and I could look with our naked eye, and they are wondering how in the world that happened, how those things came to be, and how this delicate balance, this dance of sorts is so perfectly intertwined that every single thing that is there makes our life here on earth possible. So they're looking at the same thing, they're just describing it in a different way. Granted, there are scientists that are atheists. That's granted. There are scientists that look at it in an empirical way, and if it cannot be measured, if it not cannot be tested, if I cannot weigh it, if I cannot see it in the language and context of science, then I'm going to discount it. But they're not all atheists. There are many scientists that approach their inquiry from a perspective of faith, and all that they do and all that they see is perfectly is God's perfect hand, God's perfect will working in and through His creation, and they're just trying to explain it in a more sensible or a more, I don't know, scientific way that can be measured, that can be understood by thinking minds and by people that approach the world in such a way. One of the products that one of the toolkit, part of the toolkit that we are working on is a series of sermons and Bible studies to help pastors and youth leaders engage their congregations and their people in an open dialogue, if you please, to share or to explore ways in which you see God's hand and His movement in both science and faith. And one of the anchoring passages for that particular approach comes out of the New Testament, James chapter 1 and verse 17. James speaking about how God works with us and through us and in us. And he concludes that no matter what is going on around us, every good and perfect gift comes from above. It's coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. And that is an interesting concept. That is an interesting way of looking at things, because for some reason, for centuries, I'm assuming, the church has been like it's either sacred or it is secular. It comes from God or it doesn't. And James is saying that every single thing that we have around us, it is a gift of God. So on that basis, I'm not trying to say that this horrible pandemic is a gift from God. That's not what I'm trying to say. We had another scientist that wrote a paper about how you and I have allowed this greedy world to pillage and to plunder the resources of this world, and we have placed ourselves in contact with things that we were probably never intended to be in contact with. So our greed and our desire for taking everything that this earth has to offer has placed us in a situation where these viruses that were contained in nature now are in contact with human beings, and they become zoonotic. They transfer from animals to human beings, because some of those things can mutate and make the jump. So he addressed that. This scientist addressed this issue by saying that our responsibility is to care for our world, to care for this creation, because that's part of what God intended for each one of us in the book of Genesis. He called Adam and Eve, and by extension, each one of us, to care for our world, to care for this creation, and to make sure that we're just not taking everything and killing the environment and moving us towards an eventual crash. What I'm saying is that what God has endowed us is with the intellects and the knowledge to know those things, to explore, to explore, to explore the world, to understand the boundaries, to understand what is good and what is bad, to create things that can help us in the process of, 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 of of fostering a better world for all the individuals that inhabit the earth. So this knowledge, it's one of the best things that God has given to each one of us. It's kind of a it's kind of a of it's part of God's imprint, His image bestowed upon us. If you read the Bible, you're gonna find, time after time after time after time, places in which God speaks about this knowledge. We will know the truth, and the truth will set us free. And we understand from a theological perspective that this is primarily speaking about entering into a deep, abiding relationship with the truth, which is a euphemism to speak about Christ. And He will set us free. But in that freedom, we enter into a new understanding of what we are supposed to do and who we are supposed to be. So this knowledge becomes greater and greater, and we become closer and closer to God's intention. I don't know, Proverbs, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And it is the idea that desiring God, that seeking after God is truly the beginning of this divine knowledge, this divine understanding that is given to each one of us. And I can go on for a little while, going down the list of Bible verses, but I don't think that would be good at this point, because the idea, or what I'm trying to hint at, is that contrary to what some may think, the knowledge or the capacity for understanding viruses and illnesses and other things around us, it's not a bad thing. It is a great thing, and it is endowed to us by God. I think that you have heard the argument, time after time, and it's probably like a broken record, at least for me right now. Yeah, but the vaccine was developed way too fast. This thing came last year, and in record time, we were able to come up with a vaccine, and all the arguments and conspiracy theories that kind of attach to that particular way of thinking, from nanotechnology to stuff that will link you to the cloud and upload or download your brain and make you a zombie, and just go down the line. And all those things are simply thoughts that are based on wrong assumptions. COVID viruses are old, and we have been studying them forever. We have identified more than 100 COVID viruses, and we've been studying them for a long time. So the genome of these viruses, the way that they attach to the proteins in our bodies, the way that they replicate, we already knew a whole bunch of that basic knowledge. If you don't believe me, we I think it was 2002, SARS, COVID 02. That's the epidemic of SARS, COVID in 2002. SARS is a COVID virus. It's kind of the same. It's in the same family. There's another virus that is probably not well known in our regions. It's called MERS COVID. It's Middle East respiratory syndrome virus. It's a COVID derivative. It's on that same family, on that same genome. So we were able to come to the quick development of some good vaccines, because scientists have been working on trying to understand the mechanisms that allow this type of viruses, this COVID viruses, to engage with human beings and to wreak havoc. We already knew that. RNA, nobody came up with RNA yesterday. RNA, it's been in the tables for a long time. DNA, RNA, they are part of our genetic makeup, and scientists have been studying RNA because it's also called messenger RNA, because it moves information, genetic information, from one place in the body to a different place in the body. So, they just said, hey, hold on one second. If we take this information and we place it in an RNA capsule, then we can actually prime the system and create an immune response, and then COVID-19 will be rendered mute, or at least not as potent as it is for some people. So, all those things, all that knowledge, that capacity for looking past, illnesses and thinking of them like we don't know where they come from, as in the Middle Ages. God has given us the knowledge to understand that and use that knowledge to our advantage. The Bible specifically speaks about us human beings being created in the image and the likeness of God, and that has nothing to do with having two eyes or a nose or a mouth or hair or no hair. It has to do with the capacities that He has endowed in us, the ability to love, the ability to communicate, the ability to create, the ability to reason, to think, and to understand, so we can make a better place. All those things are part of that beautiful knowledge that God has given to us. Jeremy, I've been speaking for a little while, and I have no idea how much time I have, and if there's any questions. So I'm gonna stop for a second to see if there's any comments or questions.
No, thanks. That's been really fascinating so far. I didn't know that about the. I wish I had known what you were saying, because I have known people talking about, yeah, it was the COVID virus is so so fast developed and those kind of things, and I just didn't know what to say. I mean, but one thing I was thinking about is the everyday Christian follower of Jesus, or even if you're not a Christian, just has a hard time evaluating, because we're not like everyday person. Where we get our information is you Google things, and then you watch the things that people post on social media, and then you have to look at it and say, is that true or not? And it's
hard to evaluate what is true and what is not.
Yeah, is it true or not? And it's hard because there's so much information out there. And I just think about that. And the second thing I think about is, so I would love to hear your take on some of these things. The second thing I think about is faith and reason. I know Marquise shared his testimony not long ago with us when we were talking about a series of conversations about Jesus, but reason was a big step in terms of asking all these questions, thinking, the human capacity to reason was a big step in his moving towards faith in Jesus. It leads you towards the doorstep, but then actually you have to take a step of faith, right? You have to trust. But I'm thinking about, like, that's something I've wrestled with. Why is it that I understand how some people could be very suspicious of, like, reasoning if it makes it feel like we're, like, putting God in a box, we're, like, explaining the world, explaining everything away so we don't need God anymore.
Yeah.
And then if you're a church leader, if you're a Christian that's trying to help others come to trust in God, right? And especially if a lot of the Christian or the people out there that talk about science and stuff, that if they aren't Christians and they seem to use science to try to disprove God or stuff like that, I can understand, and I'm sure you've encountered this, I can understand why people of faith will just say something like, just trust God, like this COVID stuff, it's just man, it's man, like, God's power is greater, like that. Just you don't have a strong sense of like when those people would hear the other Christians even saying, well, yes, but like, the kind of things you were saying, yes, but God has given us understanding and our brain to kind of think through what a COVID is and like how to be careful. And I'm not just talking about COVID, any kind of thing that we're ready to decide.
Sure.
And it can sound to that person that has strong faith, like, I just trust God, I don't have to understand, to be really, it's like they lack faith. You're very secular. You're very,
Sure.
you're just sort of, you don't trust God. You just want to use your mind to think through it on your own, like, so that's kind of stuff. Those are kind of things that I wrestle with. And I'm sure you've thought about this, but anyways, I don't even know what my question is, but I'm sure you could address that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can wax philosophical for a second, and I think that one of the problems that we have as a society is this Platonic dualism that we have attached to everything. It is either good or bad, it's dark or it has light, it's dead or it's alive. We can go on with that idea. So we either have faith or we have reason, and we kind of hold them as mutually exclusive. In other words, you cannot be a person of faith if you are trying to reason like the rest of this world reasons, and that is one of those instances of Platonic dualism, thinking that faith and reason are mutually exclusive, or that they exist in two separate sides or poles of the spectrum, polar opposites, and that is not so. I believe it was John Paul II. He wrote an encyclical. Oh man, what was that thing? Fides et Ratio, faith and reason. And if my memory serves me correctly, please don't quote me. I may probably some other pope at some other time, but I think it was John Paul II. He spoke about the fact that faith and reason are like the two wings of the human spirit, and he spoke about, or he wrote about, our human spirit rising as those two wings are impulsing or moving us forward and deeper into God's creation and into God's purposes for all of us as human beings. He spoke about faith and reason as the fulcrum, the pivot where our lives actually rest. Faith is not blind, although some aspects of faith are blind. The Bible speaks about that faith is hoping for things that are not yet seen, not yet revealed. So we have or hold those aspects of faith intact as believers, as followers of Christ. But faith is also reasonable. Faith is also the capacity of taking a piece of scripture and doing exegetical work to jump to an homiletical exercise to then being able to preach it. It is by reason that we have come to a deeper and greater understanding of scripture. It's by reason that we if we're trained in theology, we go and we learn Greek and we learn Hebrew because we want to go or to get at the original intent, the core foundation of the message of God, so we can make generalizations for our world today, so we can take that message and apply it in our context and speak to the needs of the people that we are surrounded by, which are the people that we're responsible for. So reason is not. Reason does not trump faith, and faith does not trump reason. It's the same idea. They work in tandem to get us to a deeper understanding of who God is. I'm afraid that we all, or the majority of us, we start our Christian, let me not say it that way, at least us that were born and raised into a Christian family, and we were born in the church, and we were raised like from little children. We were given the ABCs. we develop or start with a blind faith because this is the faith of my parents. This is the faith that was given to me through Sunday school. This is the faith that sustained me as I was growing up, and this is the faith that perhaps I rebelled against in my teenage years. But this is the faith that I was able to come back at some point later in my life. So we, at least this segment of Christianity starts with this blind faith. But for me, blind faith was just not simply enough because at every declaration that I saw, I had like 25,000 questions about each one of these declarations. And I'm not satisfied, because my pastor said so. That's not enough. That's not a good enough answer for me. So reason sent me in a quest in which I had to deconstruct just about every single thing I learned to be able to find the answer, the correct answer, and relearn and develop a different system of faith or an approach to faith that is heart and mind. I love the Lord with all my heart and with all my mind, but I also think about ways in which we can serve the Lord better. I stop there. What do I mean by that? How do we serve God? I don't know. Some people in the church will tell you something like, well, you serve God by going to church every Sunday. You serve God by giving a tenth of your salary, by tithing. You serve God by tending to the ordinances and by these spiritual practices. And I say, glory, glory, hallelujah. That is all probably part of serving God. But I think that there's a more complete answer than just, checking a box of things that I am doing. Because, serving God is a thing of the heart and of the mind. And what is the answer then? The Bible provides us a better answer. You serve God, or you love God, and you love your neighbor, which encapsulates the two greatest commandments spoken by Jesus. So how do we go about unpacking faith? We go about unpacking faith by reason. So my reason tells me that one of the greatest responsibilities that I have as a servant of God is to not just love God blindly, but to love God and showing it by loving my neighbor in demonstrable ways, in tangible ways. So I reject all those things that will harm my fellow brothers and sisters. So I start deconstructing ways that kind of put barriers around the church and preclude some of my brothers and sisters to feel safe within the church or to come near to the church. So my reason tells me that my faith needs to be adjusted in ways that are reflective to the true intention of God. I think I'm saying all that to come back full circle to the idea that trusting God blindly could be a handicap for many people. I don't want to put any more work, so I'm going to say that I trust God. I don't want to be challenged in the way that I feel, so I just trust God. I don't want to change my preconceived notions or my predilections or my prejudices, so I trust God. We can go on and on and on and on down that list, and we will arrive at a gazillion things. Slavery was one of I trust God, and that's within the pages of Scripture. Patriarchy, it's in the Bible. Yeah, it's in the Bible, but that doesn't mean that you need to continue using those outmoded and hurtful things, because to trust God is to deconstruct those things that hurt my fellow brother and sister, and to bring about the full justice and equity of the gospel to every single person. So yeah.
And can I add, maybe it's that makes Christians, when people that would criticize Christians say you're just superstitious, that makes faith actually, when you don't actually want to see what evidence God puts before you and learn about it,
Yeah.
maybe your faith is, it kind of becomes a superstition. So
It kind
if
of
people are
does.
criticizing us for it, maybe it's not completely wrong.
Yeah.
if we're
And
not-
waxing historically now, that's one of the great divides between the Dark Ages and the result of the Age of Illustration. All the way up to the beginning of the Illustration, every single answer was theological. Every single answer was shrouded in mystery. This grand thing that is unfathomable, that nobody can actually comprehend. So if I have a question, the church is the one that is giving me the answers up to that point. If there's a phenomenon to be explained, the theologians, the priests, are the ones that are going to provide the explanations. With the coming of the Age of Illustration, there's a definite shift in how we understand the world. So we have a great movement of science, and discovery, and a thirst for knowledge, and we start, because technology that comes from the Illustration makes it possible. Now we can get better crystals that we can use as better lenses, and we can peer deeper into the vast skies, and now we can start understanding better. So the Industrial Revolution and the Enlightenment drives this idea of knowledge, and we gain more knowledge, and we gain more knowledge, and we gain more knowledge. And one thing happened, God was at the center, but slowly but surely God is being shifted from the center, and now humanism comes closer and closer to the center. Not in our time. Humanism is dead center right now, and God is in the periphery somewhere. So the shift in our times is complete, and now we look at the theological answers as shrouded in mystery again, and they do not address the needs of the people that know how the world actually works. So it's a cop-out in a way, going back to this idea that, hey, I trust God to, the heck with everything else. This is the way it is. I trust God, and God is a creator, and nobody's saying that he's not. Nobody's saying that he's not in control. What we just say is that there's more to the story than that. God has also given us the tools to understand how the world works, and we can use those tools to our advantage. Going back to the Dark Ages, and the beginning of the Age of the Illustration and the Industrial Revolution, we believe that illnesses just spontaneously happen. So what would you do? What would you do with something that just happens? There's no way to. So we're going to pray. We're going to light candles, and we're going to shroud this in ritual, because if there's no way to understand how things happen, God is the only one that can save us from those things that just materialize out of thin air or whole cloth. But with the advent of science, we created not only telescopes to look outwardly, but we also created microscopes to look at our world. So, we started looking at, hey, this thing is not coming out of anywhere. There's this other world that was out of our reach up till now, and all these illnesses, all these things come from this little world. So let us protect ourselves from this other universe that was unseen to us up to this point. So reason and faith brings us to the point in which we can understand better how God works and whom God is. We stand in a great tradition where the Jesuit priests were scientists, were people of great intellect and understanding. Of course, there's a division between the Catholic faith world and and the more evangelical, or I don't know, we call it Christian, but it's all Christian world. But we come out of that tradition of knowledge and seeking understanding. And I think we shortchange ourselves when we try to shut out the experiences of seeking more understanding and seeking more knowledge.
Something you said about, like we tend to think, certain things are either good or bad or evil. Yeah. And then tying in with like, who do we trust? I guess with science, I work in health science, which is not, there's all the disclaimers that it's not an exact science.
No, it is not.
And
It is an art form.
it is in a lot of ways, but also there's an industry to it, especially in this country. And so I guess, when I do talk to people who are reticent towards like this vaccine, for instance, or just other vaccines in general, or other treatments, I'm a little, I can be very empathetic, just that I trust in science in that it's a beautiful system, and it seems to have been designed by a creator. But I do know that there is some power and principality behind the industry of it all, and I've seen some of the corruption funding certain things, or how money flows through these streams. And for someone from a community who has firsthand maybe seen like family members being experimented on or whatever,
community.
like just they can maybe, it might just be easier to just trust in God versus like trusting in the one who hurt me, or so I guess it's hard to dialogue sometimes when there's a hurt and a pain, or and my own experience too, like Western medicine failed me at some point in my life, and I had to go to Eastern medicine, and a lot of people don't view that as like hard science because whatever studies are not available, or it's not evidence-based, or like what I think it depends on what our definition of science.
As you are speaking, I cannot help but think about things like the Tuskegee study, and other horrible instances in which men of science have decided to take all the liberties that they can to pursue knowledge.
The whole
and the prize. Who cares about the prize? We go to the Holocaust. We can continue on, and we will find, I don't know, in many stages of our history, we will find something that kind of approximates the same idea, and those are valid concerns for many people. The African American community historically, from issues stemming partly from the Tuskegee study, but also other malfeasance that has been visited upon them, they are reticent about engaging medical science from the get-go. Is this another Tuskegee, modern Tuskegee approach? And even the Latino families, the Latinx communities will approach the same. Will approach science kind of in the same way, maybe for other reasons, and for some of the reasons that we're just articulating right now. We also have, as you explained, there is a distrust or not understanding of Eastern medicine. I don't know if it's because we don't consider it empirical enough. It's some people will say it's hocus pocus, and immediately they will label it as not useful, and that's not so, because this is Eastern medicine goes back to the things that God gave us, herbs and ancient techniques that have been passed, from generation to generation, that harkens back millennia, that were extant before the medical science or the medical establishment was available. So it is a very complicated. It is a very complex and nuanced problem. One of the things that we found or we discovered when we finally got the community vaccination center at Esperanza, Luis Cortez and other people from the higher uppers, they fought hard to find or to get a vaccination center available within our community, because people were not driving, Hispanics were not driving, Latinx people were not driving down to downtown to get vaccinated. So Hispanics were lagging behind in vaccination numbers. The city did not want to have another center. FEMA did not want to have another center. They had to twist some higher uppers in the government structure to bring a community center, a community vaccination center to our grounds. So our people, black, brown, and all shades in between, could actually have access, unfettered access to vaccinations. And that's when all the fun began, because we found out rather quickly, the people that wanted to be vaccinated were vaccinated like that in no time. We had them all. But then all those people that were hesitant about them, that's what we discovered. We never thought that there were so many, and they were. Why were they hesitant? Because of all the reasons that you just articulated: mistrust, trusting God rather than trusting this garbage that was created by human and Bill Gates and has nanotechnology to track me, all those things. And we have been trying to wrap our head around how to approach or how to address those concerns in ways that are reflective of our Christian faith, and our love for our neighbor, and allowing people to have their freedom of expression and their freedom of choice. I mean, those things are paramount in our context. And it doesn't matter how hard I research the problem. I'm not going to convince with facts and figures and another article and another fact sheet somebody that is having an emotional response to these issues. And anti-vaxxers, we know that they exist, and they're just not against COVID-19's vaccination. They're just against putting anything that is being created in such a way in our bodies. And in a way, I understand the argument. I'm not against the argument. So we came back to the idea that we just love people the same way God loved us. So we stand with you. We listen to you. If you need information, we'll give information. But we will acknowledge the place in which you are today without trying to force anybody, because we cannot, ultimately, we cannot force anybody. So we provide what we have come up, what we have understand is we have come to an understanding that our responsibility is simply to provide what people need. So if they need support, that's what we are here to give. If they have a question, hey, we find ways to answer or address those questions. But ultimately, if people just want not to be vaccinated and wait, that's kind of what it is. We just keep loving people the way that God loved us, and serving them, because that is ultimately our responsibility.
Yeah.
Those are hard issues.
Yeah.
Those are hard issues.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of questions, but I want to make space in case anyone else, Amy or Marquise, but so before I ask, I'll just wait for a second.
Yeah, I guess that's an important, or like, well, that is our faith, right? Like being loved out of our trauma, or loved out of our oppression, loved out of our in darkness, loved out into the light. And so, yeah, even in healthcare, if people don't feel cared for or loved, like it's really gonna impede on their healing rate and their just their body's ability to recover. And but yeah, I guess I think like we tend to like to be in the middle, but then like hearing on both.
Yeah, the middle. In our current context, being in the middle is a hard place to be. You get all the punches because you're not right or you're not left. You're just a weird person standing in the middle of everything. You're on the receiving end from both sides. It's an interesting place to be.
It's hard to listen to everybody. And peacemaker. I mean, I do definitely. I don't want to show where. I mean, I have strong opinions about certain things, and sometimes I'm more left, sometimes I'm more right. But But one thing I'm thinking about is, when it comes to this stuff, I guess I consider myself having a very evangelistic kind of approach to a lot of stuff, and so even in terms of the middle, in terms of the Christian community, and then those who are not, I want to be in the middle there. And I do think about, when it comes to science and faith, like a lot of times people think of people of faith who are not Christian or don't have a faith background. They just think that they're dumb. That they're well, you watch the news, so you don't know people of faith, but you don't really know Christians, and then you just watch the news, and then every time those people come up, it's like either the way they voted politically, the way their temperament is towards certain political issues, or maybe like their things that make people look like, well, they're just so anti-science, they're just so dumb. And I've thought a little bit about some of these issues, about why, because from my understanding, you were talking about, the Dark Age and then the Enlightenment and the Reformation and all these things, movements, that it was really a lot of a lot of motivated by faith that sort of started the scientific revolution, right? But and believing at that point, not it's against God, but it's God is the one who fuels our understanding.
Sure.
And like now, how we're at a point where the reputation outside of their faith community is so often like, Christians are dumb. They don't. And also understanding how it's sort of fueled by within the faith community, because when you're seen as dumb, I can see you double down and you're like, well,
of course,
we still have faith. I don't care how people look at me from the outside, because I trust God, and they're going to persecute me for my religious beliefs, but I trust God, and I'm not like those scientists that think we're, they just think that we're
they're blindly following science.
They use their science and they disprove God, but I know, God created the world, and they think that the world just kind of came randomly into existence, and then things like that. So like, how it's understandable, I can see it's understandable for people of faith to be very suspicious. And on the other hand, so I'm torn, because I have, I studied engineering, right, in college. So I found a lot of the benefit of science, but you can't build a tall building without learning.
Not at all.
Yeah. Or bridge, we can't build a bridge without understanding the laws of gravity and how all the forces work. But
you cannot fly in those aluminum tubes without science.
Right. But then, I can see the perception on both sides, and like, I want to see longer conversations between people of faith and those who are not, to like show that it doesn't have to be that way, right?
An interesting thing. My brother used to be the chief science officer for Procter and Gamble. He was in charge of treatment and medication development USA, Canada. So he was traveling all over the place, making sure that all the scientists continue developing new treatments and new medications to continue selling. It's a business, so that's what it is. So he was part of that infrastructure, pushing all these bills. And in spite his brilliance, he is as leaning right as leaning right can be. To the point that he thinks that I am some kind of a buffoon that threw away my life to be a socialist idiot. I think that's what he called me the last time I spoke to him, if my memory serves me correctly. And it was an interesting conversation. He called me as they were counting ballots here in Philadelphia, and he wanted to know how things were. Like I don't work for them. Why are you asking me those questions? I know exactly what you know. So he just went on and on and on, calling me a socialist because my understanding of being a Christian has a social component to it. And he berated all my academic work because it's just based on socialism and Marxism. So, oh, right. I never knew that I quoted Marx or any other of these great thinkers in my dissertation or my academic papers. But hey, so be it. So he kind of disengaged, and we have only communicated through text message briefly from that encounter. And that discourse or that encounter got me thinking about the way that many Christians approach this issue. We have a lot of intellectual people that believe those crazy things. We have some scientists on the right side that will not take the vaccine because it's work of the devil, and so forth and so on. We have a problem with the left-leaning problem, for a better way to call it. We have a problem with left-leaning Christians attacking the intellect of those that are raising some serious questions, for themselves and their families. And as you're saying, and if you attack me and you just call me an idiot, I'm just going to double down. And if I wasn't going to get vaccinated or had my doubts, now I'm really not going to. Now I'm not going to get vaccinated just because I have my doubts, and I'm going to cook some liberal grits from this point on. So it is interesting, or not interesting. Maybe it is rather worrisome that everything in our world has become politicized. It's weaponized. You cannot address these issues without thinking that you're going to be attacked for being, I don't know, either a liberal or a person leaning right, a Trumpist of sorts. You just never know. I think I've been called both because for some people I just don't lean enough to the left, and for some others I just don't lean enough to the right, because I find myself like you. I'm sort of in the middle. Sometimes I take 2 steps towards the left. Sometimes I go back to the center and I look at some of their arguments and I say, yeah, you're right. It is hard. To be a sensible servant of God in our days. It is just hard because everything is too polarized. Right or left, and you have to take a stance. Otherwise, you're just a pariah standing in the middle. It's hard. I don't know how it will correct, or if it will ever self-correct. I don't know. I have hopes that your generation and the generation that comes after you will find we'll find a better way to address all these issues of injustice.
I hope so. I hope so. Oh,
The generation before mine and the one before and even mine, we just made a mess out of this thing.
we need God's help on it for sure. We need God's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, one last question from me. I mean, and then maybe if anyone else, but I know that you're specifically targeting the Hispanic community and our community here in the science and faith education, and you're specifically targeting it through the faith community, through churches, right? And you know, I don't know a ton about this, but I know that in general, in like, there's not enough Black and Hispanic, Latino, people in the sciences, like
In the spaces,
like, it's a pretty white world, right? I mean, it's pretty white. I think there's some Asian, you know, especially internationally, but like, how does that work in terms of, is it trying to convince the churches that the churches can help people want to go into sciences as calling in terms of following Jesus, you know?
Yeah, one of the overarching aims of the project is related with that exactly. You know, the spaces are not primed for you know, brown and Black faces to enter into the spaces of higher education in the sciences. In fact, you know, my dissertation on my second doctorate has to do with the disparity in access to post-secondary education for Latinx students within our community. So, you know, there's all sorts of structures that hinder or difficult the desires of our young people to go and find a post-secondary education and enter into the spaces. So one of the aims, or one of the major aims, at least for us, this is probably not for the funder, but this is Esperanza's desire, is to generate or to create a conscience among our young people, among our pastors, and among parents, that science can be a vocational call for somebody. Not everyone is called to be a pastor. That's not how the world works. You know, not everybody is called to be a Sunday school teacher. That's not how things work. God calls people to be scientists and to change the world, to make the world a better place. So we believe that by sharing information, by providing the right tools, by engaging people in open dialogue, they may be able to stop and listen to the voices of these young people that have talents and desires to engage into this fast-changing, technology-infused scientific world, to come and be the ones driving those changes within our communities. One of the things that have opened our eyes is the idea that we were probably thinking conceptually, you know, that we are going to have, one of these days, we're going to have completely autonomous vehicles that will drive merchandise and product from point A to point B. And I'm thinking that this is like Star Trek stuff. You know, we are playing with this and it's going to happen one day. Guess what? It's already here. We already have companies that are working and moving things autonomously with autonomous vehicles from point A to point B, cutting out the people that drive the truck. Stop for a second. Who are the truck drivers of this world? It's people like us, you know. It's people like us, you know, brown, Black, and you know, all the shades in between. That's basically what we do, and this is only just one aspect of what artificial intelligence is changing in our world. So why not inspire our young people to follow you and become engineers, not to drive the stinking truck, but to create the systems that allow those autonomous trucks to go back and forth and to move product, make our people indispensable in this new iteration of the world. It's coming, part of it is here and it's becoming more complicated. Why not giving the tools to our young people, inspire them, unleash them to fulfill their full potential and be the people that God called them to be. I am convinced that God has called, many of our children, Latino children, Asian children, African American children, to be great. Has endowed them with these great minds that surpass whatever we can do in our age and time. And some of them live in our zip codes. So one of the aims is precisely that, just to start that conversation and to assure our pastors that because, one of my teens is going to Harvard to study engineering or to Cornell to become this world-renowned scientist, he's not going or she's not going to renounce his or her faith. On the contrary, that faith is going to be strengthened and that person is going to find a deeper understanding of God, and he or she can come back into our community and help in the transformation of our places. That's what it is. The prophet speaks of a day in which, when the streets are safe and the old people can sit in the front stoop. We have a city full of front stoops, man. And the children will feel safe to run up and down the street and play. That's what we are thinking. That's what we are hoping for, spurring a change that starts with faith and moves to education and brings about the ultimate transformation of all our communities. That's, in a nutshell, our desire and our hope.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah.
I guess pragmatically, to push back a little bit, think about the volume of children. I don't know. I guess
Volume. What do you think?
No, just the masses, right? Like
Masses.
we want to. I don't know. So the top 20% of the classes can go of each year can go work on STEM, and then some might not come back, some might come back. Meanwhile, while like in certain affluent areas they have self-driving cars and stuff like that, in our communities where the masses are, like, people might not trust these self-driving cars, so there will still be somewhat of at least a underground economy of taxis or trucks, or I don't know. Will it catch up like that fast, or will the divide keep
getting bigger between?
Yeah, the problem is the economic divide. I think the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Our young people have no qualms about technology. I look at them Teslas. I pastored in Washington, D.C. for a while, and Washington, D.C., it's filled to the brim with them Teslas. There are everywhere.
Wow.
In a traffic jam, you are surrounded by them. So I keep looking at them and I keep thinking, gee whiz, I've been driving since I was 16 years old. I don't think I want to surrender my cognitive abilities to that stupid computer. That's me. I don't, but then again, my first computer was a Commodore 64 when I was, oh man, I'm dating myself. When I was probably 13 years old. So back in the 80s. And I have seen them crash and I have seen them do all crazy things. And even though I'm surrounded by computers all the time, I know there are limitations. So I don't trust them. They're tools. And I'm not going to surrender my life to them. But the newer generations, the ones that came instead of sucking on a pacifier, they suck on an iPhone. Mom's iPhone or dad's iPhone. That's the pacifier. And I think it's my my nephew's little girl, she's probably 2, and she goes like this, like, hello, who in the world taught this little kid to play with the phone? She knows how to play with the phone. She goes and she accesses the shows that she wants, and she's what, 2 or 2.5, something like that. So these children, that generation, they will have no qualms, no problems with autonomous cars. The problem is that gap between the haves and the have-nots. And gee whiz, that gap is just growing, wider and wider and wider. Hate to say it, but that's what it is.
I guess I guess my concern is like
Yeah.
the kids they know how to use the phone. They don't know how to program it. They don't know what's behind it. And the more that they are stuck on those phones, like it makes
Yeah. They need to move beyond. Yeah, but what I'm trying to hint at is that they have a familiarity with these technologies that will make them more prone to follow those types of careers and enter into STEM fields. Harkening back to the Commodore 64, the days of BASIC. That was the old computer language. Probably predates all of you guys. And I remember, I remember buying books because the Commodore 64 had nothing. You could buy some software. It was probably too expensive, but there were books so you could write your own code and write your own programs. You're just there and entering text, inputting text into the computer, only to find out that you messed one of the code somewhere and the darn thing will just not run. I didn't care about that side of sciences because I care about biology and chemistry and physics and math. So I just went somewhere else. But I have a friend that we used to play on them Commodore 64 when we were children, and he went into that engineering field, and he's an electric engineer making a bundle of money. He's killing it, and here I am as a pastor, not killing it. So I should have made a different decision, I think, somewhere. Yeah, and the problem, or I think that the good thing is that in spite of this gap, there are always those that can and will make it to the top. Through mentoring, through engagement, community engagement, family engagement, church engagement. If we become advocates of our people, then the sky is the limit. One of our scientists, Dr. Dawn Shell, she is an African-American immunologist, and she works at Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. She is a firm believer. I'm energized every time that I speak to her because she speaks about science, and she cannot help herself but to open the Bible right in the middle of all that. So she's kind of preaching out of a science book. It's an interesting conversation every time. Her church, even though it's a small church, they have made it a point to raise funds to grant scholarships to every single member of the church that goes into college. It's not enough to pay for 2 classes, but it's enough to put some food or to give some, or for students to buy whatever articles they may need during the semester. So if we as churches can come around and rally around our children, our young people, and become their advocates, I don't see any way. I don't see a reason why they should not be able to succeed. The tools are there. The problem is that there's not enough. Our children do not have enough mentors or role models to inspire them to be better. So nobody in my family has been to college. So I guess that that includes me. So, from high school, I'm already looking for a job so I can buy me a set of wheels, and that's what it is. But if we can explain, if we can open that other world of possibilities to our children, and help them along the way, then I think that a lot of them will be able to succeed, and follow that path that can lead them to make some substantive changes for them, for their families, for our communities.
Well, yeah, if any, Marquise, if you have a question, feel free to jump in before, because I don't want to close that before. But if you don't, no worries. But what you just said, I want to say, I pray that this Ciencia, Fe y Esperanza initiative can be a part of what you were saying, like opening up opportunities to help our community sort of work on that, right? I'm going to name a bunch of things. Help make faith credible to people who don't believe in Jesus, or when it comes to reason. Help it more informed for people who do believe in Jesus. Help give opportunities for people to enter into the sciences as different kinds of fields, medicine, all these kind of things, and help provide opportunities for more the equity in breaking down the inequity between we were talking about the Black and brown, but also just in general the super rich and the poor.
Indeed.
And there's a lot of things. So I just pray that God can use this initiative as a part of sparking some of those things. So I just want to mention that, and thank you, Ed, for what you guys are doing at Esperanza as part of that. And we want to continue to learn from you guys and kind of continue to learn from. I hope that what you guys are doing can be connected to the church in our community, and we can continue to learn. So
it's our hope as well. Yeah. It's our hope as well.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for reminding me how nuanced and complex the whole thing is. Thank you.
Yeah, we want to keep the conversation on. So I hope that we can refer other people, especially pastors and spiritual leaders, and to be in dialogue with you guys. What exactly does it look like? For what kind of like forms of way of connecting with the community are you guys doing?
Well, we did a couple of things at the beginning for engagement. We created a toolkit of resources for.
So we want to look up that toolkit, maybe see if it's something that churches can use.
Yeah. So if you go to, if churches can go to our website, esperanza.us, and if you go to national programs and drop down to Ciencia, Fe y Esperanza, once you enter, there's and we're trying to find a way from our marketing department to make it more user friendly and more better to access it. You'll have a laundry list of tools that are available right now for our churches. Last year we did a 10-part series podcast, and it engages a wide sector of our community in this dialogue around faith and science. It's a dialogue with theologians. There's an episode that engages scientists. Couple episodes engaging students, both from Esperanza College and Esperanza Academy. There's a couple other. I think there's one engaging Reverend Luis Cortez and his wider vision. That thing was super interesting. So yeah, they're available. There's 10 episodes, about 35 minutes each, so you can binge watch them or listen to them, or listen to them and at your leisure. There's also I think that the first summit we conducted virtually is available. So you're going to have 4 presentations, 2 from a scientific perspective, 2 from a theological perspective about the confluence of faith and science. and Q&A with the participants. Also, the position papers that were presented at the summit are available there. There's a resource addressing mental health, particularly as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. We did not create that resource. It's collaboration with Sanctuary Ministries, out of British Columbia, Canada, I think. I think that's where they're located, and it's very interactive. Videos, guided sessions, top notch. I think it was completed. The translation into Spanish was completed, so that Spanish version will also be available soon within the toolkit. And I believe that the other portion that is available right now, it's a document produced by BioLogos about giving 5 reasons why Christians should consider being vaccinated. That particular document is also, it's both in English and Spanish, and it's available for download or just to access as people may want. The other aspects that we're going to be putting in, it's a sermon series, a 3-part sermon series, and a 3-part Bible study. It's been produced, and as soon as we have the product, will be uploaded. And also the new position papers for the new summit coming in September 23, 2021. They're being produced, and those will be also uploaded at some point. We're trying to engage a wider segment of our churches to enter into a guided discussion, kind of semi-structured discussion with particular churches. Our evaluators and our one of our boards is working on designing that particular piece of the puzzle right now, but that should be up and running within, I don't know, a month or so. So we will be engaging churches directly. Hopefully, the sanctions and restrictions will be lifted, and we can actually see people face to face and move it from there.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that, because I guess the science and faith conversation, I mean, it takes time. I think it takes time to reason, and like we all have.
It does.
I mean, you don't address these things, I'm sure, but I'm just going to, when I think about science and faith conversation, the things that are really complicated to talk about, I immediately think about like questions about like, the age of the earth and origins, or like, things like, evolution, and things like interpretation of the Bible. I think about, things like, miracles, and like, like things about like, all these things that really, I think, take probably more time and going back and forth, and pastors probably reflect on it, because I know pastors have different opinions about those things too. And I just think it'd be great to continue to see organization continue to help us to slowly reflect on these things. Yeah.
Great.
Can I pray real quick to maybe close? Real quick, Marquise, do you have any questions, Marquise? Feel free. Up down. He's probably doing his hair, but I'm gonna assume not.
There he is.
I don't have any questions. I don't have any questions. I was gonna say something about how people, try to use science as a basis to say, well, you can't prove God existence, and that may be true. You can't empirically prove God exists, but I think Christians use that, or not Christians use that, but I think they try to use Bible verses to use that excuse. And one of those Bible verses is what Paul, I think you mentioned James, but I know one Paul mentions where he says that God may I think God is evident by nature, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can prove God existence through nature. But I think you said this in the beginning or somewhere along the middle, that some people have their own perspective of what science is, and engineering and medicine and physics and stuff like that. Those are we use science to determine, certain things in those, in those classes. But I think a lot of young people, and just probably the ignorant, they think science is all about proving something, and if you can prove it, then it's scientific, So this is where it comes from, where it's like, well, you can't prove God because because it's just well, you can't prove God because he's so infinite. You can never prove anything that's infinite. Can never reach it. But the thing I'm trying to say is that just a lot of young people just have this poor perception of what science really is used for. It's not necessarily to prove anything, but it's to help improve things. I just think I just stuck out to me because I have a lot of debates about people, and I have a lot of debates about people, and they try to use science. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, I don't know.
Sure.
That was really interesting. I'm glad you did that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that that I like his words. For us, for me, I start the discussion from the strong understanding that God is. Bereth, Bashar, Bachar, Elohim. In the beginning, God, the first words of the Bible. So I always start from that understanding, not doubting that the scientists that were engaging in the project start with the same understanding. They're faith-based scientists, and our theologians, of course, they understand that. But you're absolutely right. There are people that start somewhere else, start from a desire to disprove the existence of God, and because it cannot be ascertained or measured empirically, ergo doesn't exist. I think that the verse that you were making reference to, I think it's Romans chapter 1 and verse 19, if my memory serves me correctly, where Paul says, that you don't have to look far because everything that we can see makes self-evident or plain the existence of a God who is the creator. And for us, that is the starting point. And as you say, there's a lot of fun debating these types of things, and there's value in it. You may provide an apology that actually shakes the foundations of belief of somebody, and you may very well be an instrument of God, to bring that person to light. So I commend you for entering into those discussions, and keep going, brother. I like it.
Praise the Lord.
Man.
Yeah, and I mean, and it can happen in so many ways, right? I mean, it can happen for people. Just scientists working alongside a scientist, and they're like, "Oh, you're believe in Jesus? What? How can you be that dumb?" And and then something. But this is rich. I mean, I think that this is just the beginning, right? Because when you think about science, like there's so many things you brought up. There's so many things you brought up. AI, all this thing. I wanna pray for your work, and I wanna ask the Lord too.
Amen.
That He really bless our minds. Like all of this for me is circling around using our mind in a way that reflects the mind of Christ. And so let me pray for you, Ed, and thanks for your time. And just, this is going to be rich. I pray that our community can grow in this. So Lord Jesus, we thank you for this conversation. First of all, let me just mention the pandemic. Lord, thank you that we're getting to a point where we're starting to see some of it die down. I do want to pray for India. And even though I haven't seen them in the news this week as much, but it seems like they still are. It's really bad there. And we just ask for your hand somehow to move powerfully, vaccines, whatever needs to be done. Lord, we know that many people are past dying, and it's just really, really tough. Bring your comfort and your spirit in that place. But then we also ask, Lord, our community, Lord, we don't have the same pandemic issues and COVID here. We do want to see more people taking advantage of the vaccines that have been created. But we also ask, Lord, long term for our community and just for the things that we've been talking about today, that we can grow to use our love the Lord our God with our heart, soul, mind, and strength. To learn to figure out, this is tricky territory, I guess. It's not there's some really tricky stuff in trying to understand science that I don't pretend to have all the answers, and I know that they require wisdom that comes from you. But James says, if any of you lacks wisdom, just ask for it, and we know that you'll provide. No, I believe that perhaps even this Yancey Fe and Esperanza initiative is a beginning of answer to prayer for that you can equip our neighborhood with tools to think through how to help our leaders understand how to help our young people. Maybe they have questions. Can I believe in God and believe in, and this stuff that I learned in my science class or whatever.
Yes.
So we just want to learn. This is just one part of all of the things that we're trying to think about. Lord, Jesus, you came to renew all things. You came to fix everything broken in this world that we've messed up. And science, I believe, is a tool in your hands, in the hands of our Creator, in the hands of Jesus, that if used well, we can use to be a part of your healing work. We just want to be a part of healing all that we've broken, all this broken world. Our relationships are everything. So help us with that. I also pray as we're seeking wisdom, even using our minds to think wisdom as people are trying to open things back up with this pandemic. Help us to figure out what's wise. Should we just do outdoor events? Should we? Yeah, help us to do what's wise. Because we want to love our neighbors as ourselves, and we want to be a good witness to people around us about what it means that Jesus is Lord. So thanks for this rich time with Pastor Ed. I pray that you bless Ed, bless his mind as he's thinking through how to use his position and his work for the Lord in our community. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.